Would you like to hold my grandchild?
A mysterious man suddenly appeared and says such a thing. I have only one daughter, Sarah. Sarah is still a high school freshman. There's no way I could have a grandchild. What is this man talking about? Frightened, I hurriedly left the place. A few days later, an unbelievable truth was revealed. No way! Why was I so shocked? My name is Karen. I'm a 45-year-old stay-at-home mom. I married my husband, John, 20 years ago. We have one daughter, Sarah. Sarah is now a high school freshman. Unlike me, she's diligent and does well in school. She's grown into a bright and energetic girl. I'm off to school.
I'm heading to work too.
Have a good day, I say, seeing them off. This is a typical scene in our life. I think it's a very normal day-to-day routine. In the evening, it becomes the welcome home version. We gather around the dinner table and talk about what happened that day. For 20 years, this happiness continued. I never felt any dissatisfaction. John is an ideal husband and father. He's passionate about education. Sometimes he clashes with Sarah because of it.
Did you make another mistake on your test?
Dad, you're so annoying. I just misspelled one word. I thought Sarah was amazing, always ranking in the top 3 of her class. Personally, I wasn't good at studying, and I thought as long as she wasn't failing, that was fine. But for John, a graduate of a prestigious university and now a sales manager at a major company, 2nd or 3rd place just isn't good enough. And John, calm down. Sarah's doing her best with her studies, extracurricular activities, and lessons. Don't be too hard on her. He doesn't mean to be harsh, Sarah. When I said that, they both turned away from each other. Sometimes moments like this happen, but I think we're generally a close-knit family. After all, Sarah is a 15-year-old girl. It's not unusual for her to clash with her father. Despite the occasional argument, it's still a normal family scene. I was happy, imagining a future where I grow old with John, and Sarah eventually gets married, giving me grandchildren. One day, John suddenly announced he had to go on a business trip.
I've been avoiding trips while Sarah was preparing for high school exams, but now she's in, and there's some time before she starts going to college. So I need to focus on work now.
And with that, John left for his trip. At first, I didn't suspect anything, but as the trips became more frequent, I started to feel uneasy. Even if he's the sales manager, this seems like a lot of business trips. Don't you think there's something more going on? Let's give him some time. College will be expensive, and maybe he's just working hard to save up for us. Maybe. Sarah wasn't completely convinced, but I didn't want to doubt my husband without reason. Several months passed with John frequently being away. Sarah had gotten used to high school, excelling in both studies and extracurriculars. She continued playing basketball and piano, just like in middle school. Her 16th birthday was approaching, so I went to a high-end supermarket to buy something special. On the way back, a strange incident occurred.
Would you like to hold my grandchild?
Huh? Your grandchild? A young man, seemingly in his early 20s, appeared out of nowhere. I was shaken by his sudden approach, but when he mentioned a grandchild, I was even more confused. I don't have a son. I don't even have a grandchild. You must have the wrong person. I turned my back to him and hurried away. I glanced back once, and he got into a van with a construction company's logo on it and drove away as if nothing had happened. My heart was pounding, and I was terrified. When I got home, John, who wasn't on a trip, greeted me.
You look pale. Did you run back here?
I had ridden my bike to the supermarket, but I was so scared I forgot all about it. I quickly told him about the incident. A young man I didn't know approached me and asked to hold his grandchild. It made no sense. John widened his eyes for a moment, but then placed a hand on my shoulder to calm me down.
Oh, that's scary, but it's probably best not to think too much about it.
Not think about it? He came directly toward me and said something so strange. If it were a scam, it wouldn't make sense to approach me in such a public place like near the supermarket. My mind was racing, and I felt like I was about to explode. How can I not think about it? A complete stranger talked to me about a grandchild. Of course I'm scared and worried. I realized I had snapped at John in my panic. I'm sorry. John gave me a gentle look and said,
Karen, you're still very beautiful, even in your 40s. Maybe he was trying to flirt with you. You know how some guys use weird lines to start conversations?
Flirt? By talking about a grandchild? It seemed odd to me, but I decided to accept John's explanation. Later, when Sarah came home, she had a gloomy expression. "What's wrong?" Sarah explained, looking troubled. "There's been a suspicious person near the school. A man wearing a hat and sunglasses has been hanging around the back gate, staring inside. The teachers tried to talk to him, but he ran away." Hearing that made me even more anxious. I was already shaken by my own experience, and now my high school daughter might be in danger too. Maybe I should pick you up from school for a while.
You're overreacting. Neither you nor Sarah has been harmed, right? There's no need to worry so much. Sarah's in high school now. You shouldn't coddle her by driving her every day.
John's insensitive comment made me angry. It's too late if something happens. Sarah's only in her first year of high school. We can't assume nothing will happen.
Don't get so mad. Fine, do whatever you want, but don't expect me to help if Sarah becomes spoiled because of it.
With that, John stormed off to his room. I decided to start picking Sarah up from school despite John's objections. No further reports of the suspicious man came in, so maybe John was right and I was overreacting. But I thought it was safest to continue driving Sarah for the time being. About 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. I worked part-time at a local deli. One day, the same man who had talked about a grandchild came into the shop as a customer. At first, I thought I must have been mistaken. But when I glanced outside, I saw the same van with the construction company's logo. My heart started pounding again. It was 3 p.m., the post-lunch lull, and I was alone in the shop. I couldn't run or hide. I had to face him. Surprisingly, the man seemed calm and focused on what to buy. "What would you like to order?"
"I'd like a hamburger and something a child might like."
"For your child?" I wondered if he was referring to the grandchild from before. If he was buying food for a child, maybe he wasn't lying after all.
"My child is about 1 year old."
A 1-year-old? The food here are seasoned for adults, so they might be too salty for a child that young. "What does your child like to eat?" The man looked surprised, but answered.
"She likes chicken."
The shop was small, but sometimes regular customers asked for custom food. I decided to make something special for the child. This time I'll make an exception with lighter seasoning and softer ingredients, but this is just a one-time thing. The other part-timers can't make special orders, and if people find out, it could cause problems for the shop. I was nervous about his reaction, but to my surprise, he was grateful.
"Thank you so much. I'm not good at cooking, and I've been relying on baby food pouches. This will be really helpful."
He thanked me sincerely and left. Maybe he wasn't such a bad person after all. I felt his words and expression were genuine, especially since I had raised Sarah myself and knew how hard parenting could be. That evening, I told John about the encounter. He looked concerned and made a phone call to someone. The next day, my boss called me.
"I heard about the situation. You should take a break for a while."
It seemed John had contacted my boss. John was overreacting. The man had just bought some food and left. I couldn't understand why John was so worried, especially when he hadn't shown the same concern for Sarah's safety earlier. John insisted I stay home, restricting my movements. Even daily grocery shopping became his responsibility. Sarah noticed and complained to John. "Dad, I understand you're worried, but this is too much. Mom's basically stuck at home." Despite Sarah's protests, John didn't change his mind, and a month passed. I was at my limit. One day I got a call from a colleague asking for help. A nearby daycare was short on staff, and they needed help preparing lunches.
"Can you come in and help? We're short-staffed, and the shop needs to send out the lunches."
"I'll be there. I've been cooped up for too long, and this is an emergency." After informing my boss, I headed to the daycare. When I arrived, I was shocked to see the same man from before. He was standing outside staring into the daycare. I quickly pulled out my phone, ready to call the police. Just then, a teacher came out carrying a young girl with a cooling sheet on her forehead.
"Sorry to keep you waiting, Dad. Rachel's fever has gone down, but she's still a bit weak."
The man thanked the teacher and took the girl's hand, looking worried. I realized he wasn't dangerous after all. After delivering the lunches, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Later, the teacher confirmed he was a loving father who always picked up his daughter when she was sick. Still, I felt uneasy. I delivered the lunches and returned to the shop, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. The man who once scared me now seemed like a kind, worried father. His behavior didn't seem dangerous, but some things still didn't sit right with me. Back at home, I reflected on what had happened. Maybe I'm overthinking this. The next few days were quiet. However, I couldn't let go of the feeling that I was missing something important. Driven by curiosity, I decided to search for the construction company the man worked for. It turned out to be a legitimate local company. After some hesitation, I called the company. A few days later, John came home early from work, asking about the message I sent him.
What's this about? Sarah saw the message too.
Mom, what's going on? Both John and Sarah were waiting for me to speak.
You're not going to drop a bombshell like a divorce, are you? Because if you're bored with me or something, I'll be mad.
Normally, I would have laughed at his attempt to joke, but this time the word divorce didn't seem so far-fetched. My silence made the atmosphere even heavier. Dad, stop joking like that! Sarah scolded John, and he muttered an apology, looking down. I wasn't sure where to begin, but at that moment my phone buzzed. Maybe it was easier to show them rather than explain. I'll let you see for yourself. I might not explain it well right now. I went to the door and invited someone in. Sarah looked confused when she saw the man. Who is this? Mom, this isn't some secret lover, right? You didn't have a secret child, did you? Given the situation, I understood why Sarah might think that. No, Sarah. The one who betrayed us wasn't me. This man is Ethan, and he's your brother. My brother? What are you talking about? And this is Rachel, your niece. Wait, Mom, this doesn't make any sense. I realized being indirect wouldn't help, so I decided to tell the truth directly. Ethan is John's son from a relationship he had before we got married. What? Dad, is this true? John, speechless, hung his head in shame. 20 years ago, John got another woman pregnant and abandoned her. That woman gave birth to Ethan. No way! Dad, how could you? Sarah covered her face and started crying. Ethan, standing awkwardly, looked concerned for her. Sarah, I'm sorry, but now we have to talk, all of us. You don't have to be involved in the pain of this situation any longer. If you want, you can go to your room. I had thought Sarah, being a high schooler, had the right to know the truth, but seeing her cry broke my heart. She shook her head, showing her strength. No, if this is the truth, then Ethan is my brother. I need to be here and understand what's going on. I gently took Sarah's hand. She glanced at John with tearful but determined eyes. Dad, explain everything. John, looking extremely uncomfortable, finally spoke.
Yes, Ethan is my son. I knew about him because the woman Anna sent me letters. I never responded. I tried to forget. John admitted that he had kept this secret for 20 years. He had even ignored Anna's pleas for child support. Ethan's mother had died when he was 3 and he grew up in an orphanage. I never knew my father until I started looking for him a few years ago. John's betrayal was deeper than I had ever imagined. John, you pretended to be the perfect husband, but you abandoned your child and the mother. Sarah was stunned, tears streaming down her face. I found out about John through letters my mother left behind. She had been abandoned with me, and after she passed, I was left to grow up alone. Ethan had researched John and finally found his father's company. That's when he approached me. I wanted to understand why my father had left me and my mother. But when I saw you, Karen, I didn't know what to say. That's why I said something ridiculous about a grandchild. The more Ethan spoke, the more my heart ached for him. Ethan, I'm so sorry for what John did to you and your mother. Ethan was now raising his own daughter, Rachel, alone. He feared repeating the same mistakes his father had made. I don't know how to be a good parent. I don't want to abandon her, but I don't know what's right. I had already met with Ethan after the daycare encounter, and he had confided in me. As he cried, I realized the weight of John's betrayal. I told John everything Ethan has shared with me about his struggles and pain. John, finally realizing the depth of his actions, looked devastated. But it was too late. John, I'm divorcing you. John's face turned pale. Ethan is your son. I've decided to adopt him legally. He and Rachel deserve a family, and you failed them. Please, Karen, I'll change.
No. You had your chance, but you chose to hide everything. Twice. After a long confrontation, John signed the divorce papers and left the house. Our divorce was finalized, and John was forced to pay alimony and child support for Sarah. The truth about his affair with a teacher at Sarah's school came out too, leading to both his and the teacher's downfall. The teacher was fired, and John's reputation was ruined. He lost his job and ended up homeless. Meanwhile, Sarah focused on her studies, ignoring the gossip that swirled around the school. Eventually, the rumors faded and Sarah moved on. Sarah successfully entered college, aiming to become a nurse and midwife. Why did you choose to become a midwife?
I want to support women who carry burdens alone to make sure they're not left abandoned.
As for Ethan, I suggested legal adoption to help support him and Rachel. He accepted, and we officially became a family. Sarah welcomed Ethan as her brother, and I became a grandmother to little Rachel. Our family was healing. You're doing an amazing job raising Rachel, Ethan. Don't doubt yourself. Love is in what you've already done for her.
Thanks, Karen. I couldn't have done it without you.
And so, we rebuilt our lives together.